Today we're going to go over the last section in chapter 4. Okay. We're looking at triangles on a coordinate plane and finding their vertices. Okay. We'll also be looking at some rectangles and stuff like that and finding their vertices as well. So we are going to draw and label triangles on the coordinate plane. So here's the order of how you would do that. So the first step is to use the origin as a vertex or the center of a figure. Okay, you want to use the origin because it's 0, 0. Okay, that way if it tells you the length of a leg or something like that, you can go from 0, 0 and then it's just that length over to that next coordinate point. Okay, then number 2, place at least one side of the polygon on an axis. Okay, so either your x-axis or your y-axis, not in a diagonal. Third step, you want to keep the figure in the first quadrant if possible. That way you don't have negatives, or you're not trying to figure out negatives. Okay, then number 4, we want to use the coordinates that make computations as simple as possible, like 0s, 1s, 2s, 10s, stuff like that. Okay, so an example of this: position an isosceles triangle on the coordinate plane so that its sides are a units long and one side is on the positive x-axis. Okay, so this one is done for you. So you have your x-axis and your y-axis. You have one of your vertices at 0, 0. Okay, now it does have to be an isosceles triangle, so here my two sides that would be congruent would be these two sides. Okay? And I have a side here that is a units long. Okay, so this whole side is a units long. That's how I get to point T. Okay, so if I go from R to T, I know I have to go right a units, and I don't move up or down. That's how I get that coordinate point. Now to get my coordinate point S, okay, if I drop an altitude, okay, that's called an altitude, that would be cutting this a units long in half. Okay, so if I cut that in half, it's like saying a over 2. So to get this coordinate point, from point R, I always start from that origin point. I would go right a over 2 units, because it's half, and then I'd go up that length, which they labeled as B. Okay, so you just go up that amount. Okay, does that kind of make sense? A little bit? We'll do some more examples and it'll make some more sense. So we're going to do a couple more examples here, and we want to find the missing coordinates. So I have a coordinate right here at 0, 0. My B coordinate right here is at 2p, 0. So this length is 2p. Okay, so I can find that length just by using that coordinate point. Now the piece that I'm missing in C right here is my x value. So how many do I move over to the right before I move up q units? Okay, so this is isosceles, so if I drop this altitude down, it does cut this piece in half. Okay, so since that entire length on the bottom there is 2p, half of that would just be p. Okay, so to get up to point C, you're going to move right p units and go up q, because that's how many it wants us to go up. So our point C is at PQ.
Is
Yeah.
Like the whole thing?
Kind of. You still have to draw some. Okay, number 2. Again, one of my vertices is at point R. Okay, that's at 0, 0. You always want one of your vertices at 0, 0. Yeah. So from R to S is at 2A, 0. So what is that length from R to S? 2A. Now this is an isosceles triangle, right? So this side length is congruent to this side length. So if this side RS is 2A units, that means from S to T, this length is also 2A units. Okay?
Yeah.
So I need to find my point T right here. Well, to find a coordinate point, you always start at the origin. Well, I go right 2A. And how many do I go up? 2A. So T is at 2A, 2A. Questions on that one? Okay, our next one here again is an isosceles triangle. This time, your origin isn't one of your vertices, but it's in that altitude, so in the center of that triangle. So I need to find my x value in F, and I need to find my coordinate E right here. So I can use G to do that. So from your origin to get to point G, I go to the right 2G units. Okay? So if this is an isosceles triangle, what would this length be right here? (2G). Well, if my coordinate point to get there for E, I go left 2G units. That means this has to be negative. Okay? So you're going left this time, so it's negative 2G. And then my Y value, do I move up or down to get to point E? No. So that's 0. Now I'm missing a coordinate here for F. How do I get up to F? Do I move left or right? No, so what should my x value be?
Should be -1. Yeah, okay. Fine.
Do I move left or right before I go up? From the origin, do I move left or right to get to F?
No.
No, if I don't move left or right, it's 0. You're just finding coordinate points on a graph. Okay, it's the same process as if you were plotting points.
What is that, 0B?
Yeah. So I had to find this question mark right here.
I'm so confused.
It's just finding coordinate points on a graph. That's all it is. Questions on these 3 problems? Okay. The next type of problems I have here is actually drawing these out and labeling your coordinate points. Okay, so some, you could have different examples. Your points will just be a little bit different. So for number 4, we want to draw in an isosceles triangle, okay, RST, with a base of RS, that's 4A units long, and a height of B units. Okay, so I'm going to draw this out. This way. Okay, using my origin kind of as that center point in my base. So since my base has to be RS, right? That means these 2 points should be R and S. Meaning T is your vertex point up here. Okay? Now RS has to be 4A units long. Okay, now your origin, again, is at 0, 0. So I need to figure out where point S is. It is to the right,
2A.
2A units. Okay, so I need to cut that 4A in half to get the length to point S, which is 2A. So point S will be at 2A what? 0, because I don't move up or down. Now point R, since I cut this 4A in half, it is also 2A units long from that origin, but it's to the left, so it'll be negative 2A. And then I don't move up or down, so that'll be 0. Now to get to point T, my height of my isosceles triangle is B units. Okay, so my entire height here should be B units tall. And T would be at 0B. Good job. Okay, so to get to point T, starting from your origin, do you move left or right? No. If you don't move left or right, it's 0. Then you go up. That height has to be B, so it's going up to point B. Questions on that first one? All right. Then number 5. Again, it's an isosceles triangle. This time it is a right triangle. That means it has to be 90 degrees. It has to have one 90-degree angle. Okay, and we have triangle DEF with legs that are E units long. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that you could do this one. I'm going to show you 2 different types. So first type, I'm going to have 2 of my sides on my x-axis and one on my y-axis, because your x and y-axis make a 90-degree angle, right? So if I have points here, I can make a right triangle this way. Okay? And since it's isosceles, I know those 2 sides are congruent. Okay? And what do those 2 congruent sides, how long do they have to be? E. Okay? So both of these have to be E units long. Okay, now my points, it didn't tell me which one was my base or anything like that. So I'm just going to label them. This is point D. Point E is at the origin there. And point F is over here. All right. So point E's coordinate should be really easy. What is it? 0, 0. Okay. So you always want one of your vertices to be kind of at that origin. It usually makes it a little bit easier. Now to get to point F, how many do I move to the right? E. And do I move up or down?
No.
So 0. Now to get to point D,
0E.
be 0E.
Gotcha.
Okay, you don't move left or right from the origin, so it's 0. And then you move up E units to get to point D. Okay, that's one way. A different way that you could have done this one. Okay, if this is my x and y axis here, I'm still going to use the origin as one of my vertices, but I'm going to draw it in this way. Okay, so my legs are still congruent. Okay, and they're still E units long, right? So I'm going to have point D up here. I'll keep E at the origin, and F will be at that 90-degree angle this time. Okay, so I still want to find each of these coordinate points. So E is at the origin, so it'd still be 0, 0. Now to get to F, from the origin, I go right E units to get to that point. And then I don't move up or down. If I don't move up or down, that's 0. Now to get to point D, well, I'm going to move right E units, right? And then how many do I go up? E. So point D in this case would be at E, E, because you go right E units and then up E units to get to that point. Does that make sense? Okay, I have one more here. Well, I have another one on the back, but one more drawing it. Number 6, I have an equilateral triangle, E, Q, I, with a vertex Q at 0, square root of 3b, and sides that are 2b units long. Okay, so the vertex, I know what coordinate that's at. Okay, that's at Q, and it's at 0, square root of 3b. So I can just plot that point. Okay, I go left or right 0. That means it has to be on the y-axis. And you're going up square root of 3 times b. So you can just kind of place that anywhere on that y-axis. So that is your vertex point. So that means your triangle is going to come out this way. And my other 2 points are E and I. Now I need to find those 2 coordinate points. Well, I know each of my sides are 2b units long. So that means my entire side here is 2b units long. So I can use this y-axis as an altitude. Okay, and that altitude would cut that side in half. Okay, so if I cut this in half, so I divide 2b by 2, that's just b. Okay, so each of these pieces would be b units. So to get to point I from your origin, how many units do I go to the right? B. And then I don't move up or down, so that would be 0. Now from the origin, how do I get to point E? You go left B units, and then you don't move up or down, so that would be 0.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's how you would kind of draw these ones out. I do have one more problem on the back. Okay. These ones are ones that you kind of see on your assignment. Okay, where you have actual numbers, not just letters. A few of them you do have letters, so you do the same process. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is find my missing coordinates A and C. To do that, I'm going to use my 2 that I have, B and D. Well, to get to point D, or B, sorry, I'm going to start with B. To get to point B, I go right 2 units, right? Okay, so I'm going to write 2 on that x-axis there. And then I go up 4 to get to this point. Okay, so I'm going up 4 units. For D, I need to go left 3. So from the origin, I go left 3 units. And then I go down 5. Okay, so that length has to go down 5. Now, since all my angles here are 90 degrees, this is a rectangle. Okay, so since this length right here is 4, that means this length right here is also 4. And if this length right here is -5, this length right here is also -5. Okay, so to find A, going from the origin, you just follow that path. I went left 3, and I'm going to go up 4. So A's coordinate would be at -3, 4. Okay, and then to find C from the origin, I need to find that path, so I go right 2, and then down 5 to get to that point. So we're going right 2 and down 5.
Alrighty. Thank you for this wonderful lesson.
Connor, they should just keep over.
Well, they can find you.
Any questions?